Good day, everybody. This is another episode of the podcast Walk, Talk, Listen. And actually, this is an episode of a new special series about the joint learning initiative from faith and local communities. This is a podcast called Walk, Talk, Listen. An attempt to connect people and make this world a bit better by sharing opinions and experiences based on the belief that everyone's perspective is true, albeit partial. My name is Maurice Blom, and I would like to welcome you to yet another episode of Walk, Talk, Listen. Good day, everybody. This is another episode of the podcast Walk, Talk, Listen. And actually, this is an episode of a new special series about the joint learning initiative from faith and local communities. And what we're going to try in every episode, we sit down with a unique voice, individuals from varied backgrounds like non-governmental organizations, academic institutions, and JLI itself. And, we are trying to delve deep into personal narratives and expert insights about the significant role of JLI at the crossroads of faith and development. Today, we have the privilege of hosting Emma Tomalin, a remarkable individual whose experience and viewpoints add a new dimension to our understanding of JLI's impact. We'll hear about Emma's journey, how she intersected with JLI, and her take on how this initiative is bridging critical gaps in religious and development literacy. I myself am not, only maybe a year or 1.5 years, I know about this organization, and it's really important work they're doing. So I hope that the episodes that we are going to share with you, that you also become curious about the organization, because they're doing really great work. So join us as we navigate these enlightening discussions, gaining a deeper appreciation of the diverse ways JLI influences and inspires those working towards a more understanding and cohesive world. So let's start. And Emma, please introduce yourself. And I know I feel so bad. I know you just came back from long travels, but hopefully I will be able to keep you awake.
I'm fine. Thanks very much, Maurice. So just to introduce myself first, my name is Emma Tomalin. I'm Professor of Religion and Public Life at the University of Leeds, which is in West Yorkshire in the north of England in the UK. I've published widely on the topic of religion and international development, going back 15 to 20 years now, at the time when this was just beginning to take off as an academic area of study. I published a book in 2013 with Routledge called Religions and Development. And then in 2015 was the editor of a large, I think 24 chapter volume, the Routledge Handbook of Religions and Global Development.
Do you still remember the first time that you heard about JLI? And was that before you started working with them, or almost at the same time?
No, it was before I started working with them. I'm trying to remember now. It was a few years after the JLI had actually started, which I think was in 2012.
Yeah. And
somehow I was connected with the founder of the JLI, Jean Duff. Mm-hmm. And this would have been around 2014, 2015. And I remember having a coffee with her. It's a lovely sunny day in Washington, D.C. I was visiting there for another project or meeting, and Jean was living there. And we met for a coffee, and she told me all about this new initiative called the JLI. But it wasn't until much later, perhaps around 2018, that I began directly collaborating with the JLI.
And what did attract you, to what she was envisioning? Because that was still in the initial stages, right? So around 2012.
Yeah, very much. It was just beginning. So I think for me, there's two things that have stood out about the JLI that I think are really unique and have had a really strong impact on the religions and development field. So first of all, I'd say the joint learning is between academics, practitioners and faith actors. And from my point of view, as an academic researcher working in this area, it's absolutely crucial to design research with academics, but also with practitioners and faith actors, so that we can make sure that research isn't just carried out for its own sake or at the whim of the scholar sitting in their university office. I want to carry out research that makes a difference to the lives of people experiencing poverty and inequality. And I think for that goal, it's absolutely essential that I work collaboratively with people outside the academy. So that's the first thing that really attracted me to the JLI, was this joint learning between academics, practitioners and faith actors. The second area is in the name, local faith communities, local faith actors. So JLI focuses on local faith actors. And by the time I started working with the JLI, I'd been already publishing and working on the intersection between religion and development. And it was really clear to me that much of this focused on formal faith-based organisations that have international links, and the local faith actors, the actors at the local level, were pretty much being ignored in the scholarly research, but also in the engagement between international agencies and NGOs. So local faith actors were much less often a focus of research, and they weren't really engaged with to any great extent by international NGOs and agencies. So I was really beginning to notice this gap in academic work and also in engagement. So from the very start, the JLI has had a focus on local faith actors and local communities, and it continues to be, I think, really the leading global organisation working on this specific topic.
And you know, how have you exactly been involved? And you know, I mean, you're one of those people are very active at doing different types of things, but yeah, share that with the listeners, please.
I think I started working with the JLI around 2018.
Yeah.
And I was invited to co-chair a new learning hub that the JLI was establishing on anti-human trafficking and modern slavery. Sometimes it can be difficult to remember how these connections are made and how you get introduced to people. But I think it was probably in relation to another project I'd been working on in the UK, funded by the Economic and Social Research Council, looking at the role of faith-based organisations in anti-modern slavery and human trafficking in the UK. So I was invited to co-chair its new learning hub on anti-human trafficking and modern slavery. And the JLI has traditionally operated via thematic learning hubs. So this is a space, typically a virtual space, because we've been located in different places globally. But it's a learning hub or a space that brings together, as I said before, policymakers, practitioners, faith actors and scholars to work on a specific theme. And I worked on the anti-human trafficking and modern slavery hub with my co-chair, who is a practitioner. She works for the Salvation Army, and Gregora, her name is. And we ran webinars. We commissioned a scoping study called Faith and Freedom, the role of local faith actors in anti-modern slavery and human trafficking. And we also have developed or are developing a blog series that's specifically been documenting the impact of the COVID pandemic on the work of faith actors working in this area of anti-modern slavery and human trafficking. And since then, I've been involved in a number of projects with the JLI. There was a project that was funded by the Belgian government where we worked with Tear Fund, Islamic Relief and local partners in South Sudan on a project called Bridging the Gap, the role of local faith actors in humanitarian response in South Sudan. And what we were very much looking at there was despite the fact that local faith actors are already acting as humanitarians in countries like South Sudan, they've been very much marginalized from donor-funded humanitarian action. And this sits alongside all the very prevalent discourses that we hear these days around the importance of localization of aid. So our project very much tried to better understand the impact of providing training for local faith actors in humanitarian skills, but also for international humanitarians on faith literacy. So it's supposed to be it was a two-way learning model. And we published several journal articles on this topic. So been involved in a number of projects, but that's just to name a couple in particular.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. Hey, Emma, you know that at the moment we are and that is with all organizations, going up and down with, and what I mean with that, financial challenges are there for organizations. We have a lot of ideas, a lot of great people that are involved, but we are in that, again, in a situation where we could use some extra support. So as a result, we've had many discussions about what is the elevator speech about JLI, although some marketing people have told me there is no such thing as an elevator speech. I'm still going to ask you the question, if you have to explain to people that are involved in joining this community or supporting it, how would you explain it in short?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and I have been in a position where I've both explained it to colleagues, also in presentations to audiences that aren't familiar with the JLI's work. And in my experience, some people have been quite confused about the aims and objectives of the JLI. And I think one of the reasons might be for this, that the Joint Learning Initiative for Faith and Local Communities is a very long title. It's one that captures very well what the JLI does, but I think it can be quite hard to process when you first hear it. There are all these different dimensions to it. So for me, I'd probably want to move past the name very quickly, and I'd probably just draw out the two things I've already mentioned, that this is a global initiative that emphasizes joint learning between academics, practitioners and faith actors around the topic of generating evidence about the role of local faith actors in development, humanitarianism and peace building. But also that it's been one of the pioneers, really, I think, in promoting the need to engage with local faith actors. So not just in terms of bringing them to the table, but also in terms of learning from them and collaboratively designing a policy and practice focused research agenda that very much has their needs and their participation at the centre.
I would like to piggyback on the word evidence that you mentioned, and not long ago, JLI produced this publication. It's called Taste of the Evidence. I know that you have been absolutely involved with the publication as well. But why is that an important publication? And can you explain a bit about what is meant with evidence? And the reason that I'm asking that is, when I was talking with a professor of a more, hard science, he said, where is your empirical evidence? I've gone through this publication, I see all these stories. So what is your take on that? So two questions, right? One is I know you have been involved in the publication on the state of the evidence. Can you explain a little bit about that, and then take us through, what is the definition of evidence within a JLI and in our work?
Yeah, so before talking about the status of the state of the evidence report, I just want to go back a little bit in the past and talk about why evidence actually matters with respect to the religions and development debate. So I mentioned at the beginning of what I was saying that it was probably about 15 to 20 years ago when the religions and development field, so I'm talking specifically about the academic field, began to take off.
Yeah.
Before that time, there were really virtually no publications, very few publications. It was a topic that there was a lot of fear and hesitancy about, say within economics and development studies, and governments and agencies were also very reluctant to engage with faith actors. So there were a number of us that started saying it's important to engage with faith actors. Their faith is important in many settings in the global south. It hasn't disappeared in the way that the secularization thesis predicted that it would. And also faith actors play a really important role in defining what development means for communities, but also in providing services, advocacy, and so on about what communities living in poverty need. So faith actors are really important to development. But no one was hearing this, and they were coming back with, well, where's your evidence? How can you prove this? In our experience, engaging with faith actors is dangerous. Faith actors want to convert people. That's really what they want to do. They don't really want to help people. Helping people is just a means to gain converts. Faith actors cause conflict. They're always at the root of wars and conflict. Why would we want to engage with them? And then arguments around, faith actors only want to help members of their own faith tradition. They're not going to be acting like modern humanitarians and offering aid and support to everyone. So there was a lot that we had to do to really fight back against those assumptions and what I'd also call a bias. So gathering evidence was important. Being able to demonstrate the importance of faith-based organisations, local faith actors to development became absolutely essential. And that was really where we sort of sat for that first 10 years of the discipline, was really arguing and demonstrating the ways in which faith was relevant, why it was important to engage with faith actors and what could be gained from that. Despite the fact that there's now lots of evidence, perhaps there wasn't so much evidence 15 to 20 years ago. There certainly wasn't the level of academic studies on this topic, and now there's very much written on this topic. Despite the fact that this evidence still exists, we're still being asked to produce evidence. Where's your evidence? And also, as you say, some people are looking for quantitative evidence. Evidence that so many clinics in a particular country are provided by faith providers, in order to demonstrate their relative importance within the broader health sector. And as you pointed out, much of the evidence is qualitative. It's about listening to people. It's about understanding their lives. It's about understanding what matters to them. It's about listening about their spirituality and the role that plays in their understandings of what counts as development, the kinds of family structures they want to live in, the livelihoods that they want to pursue, and so on. So you're right, much of the evidence that we have is quite qualitative, is quite based around people's stories, people's experiences, things that can't easily be quantified. And just very quickly here, I think that there is probably a need for the qualitative and quantitative researchers in this area to work more closely together. And I'd look forward very much to building those kinds of alliances in the future. I'm very much a qualitative researcher. So that's the background.
Yeah.
The state of the evidence report I was involved in. I played a role in preparing the introductory chapter, although that was substantively written by Dr. Olivia Wilkinson. And the aim was really for it to be a sort of one-stop shop for people to go to when they say, where's the evidence? This would be the place that we could direct people to, rather than constantly having to start from scratch, reinventing the wheel each time. So there's an introductory chapter that outlines key areas involved in the study and practice of religion and development. We highlight key shifts and trends, very much to then set the scene for the following chapters, which are then focused on different themes. So themes like peace and conflict, climate change, gender, and so on. So, obviously evidence grows and the field changes. So this isn't a static endeavour. It will be updated every 2 to 3 years. I think that's the plan, but that the JLI should become as well known for the state of the evidence report as it is for its learning hubs and its focus on local faith actors.
And if I would ask you, Emma, what are where, because I understand this is was the first attempt to make a publication. It will be updated. Where do you think the publication is really shining, and where could it grow some more in the next publication?
I'm going to go back to my
Yeah.
comments about local faith actors and localization. I think, the real uniqueness and strength of this is on the local faith actors, is bringing their voices, amplifying their voices, bringing them into the international arena, where it can be better understood what matters to them, and how they might be better engaged with, on their terms, rather than just on the terms of the international agencies. We've only published one. Only one version has been published so far. When you always have a new initiative, it's a little bit experimental, and it's when you get going in future years that you really begin to be able to develop and expand your initial plans.
You put emphasis on the glow, where it's shining. That is the local actors definitely in their voice, bringing that in. That experience, and where is there still space for more improvement, for the next publication?
Yeah, I think I could say one thing in terms of improvement for the next publication, and it's not really so much about the content or the quality of the publication. And we're beginning to have discussions now about what the content might look like for the future iterations, and in particular, beginning to have conversations with the global South partners of the JLI to see what they would like to focus on, and what indeed they would like to author as well. That's very important. One area for improvement, I think, is dissemination. Getting it into the hands of those that really need to see it. The UN agencies, the member states of the UN, the big secular NGOs, and indeed some of the other faith-based organisations who've not yet really collaborated with the JLI. I think that it would go a long way to improving the faith literacy within the international aid system, but also help other faith-based organisations and faith actors articulate their uniqueness, their strength, their distinctiveness, and their contribution towards the broader sector. So I think, probably dissemination. It has been widely disseminated, but it's so difficult to gauge and to know exactly where a document has ended up and what its impact has been. But I think we can always do better on dissemination.
Maybe to continue talking about the voice of the local actors. I think I don't know exactly when it started, but JLI also has now the Fair and Equitable Initiative. I think it started after the publication was done, or at the same time maybe. That is definitely becoming an initiative that's very important also for the work of JLI and its community. How do you see the Fair and Equitable Initiative, collaborating or working or being part of the next phase of the evidence report?
So as you just said, over the last couple of years, through the Fair and Equitable Initiative, the JLI has really tried to deepen its approach to localization and engaging with local faith actors. So a lot of new contacts have been built, a lot of understanding and trust has been built with local actors, who I think we're very much envisaging will be involved in the process of deciding what the new state of the evidence report looks like, and indeed also contributing towards writing some of the submissions as well for the report. I think the Fair and Equitable Initiative is absolutely at the core of the future of the JLI. It's only been going now, I think, for a couple of years, but was very much the JLI's attempt to implement or to consciously and intentionally implement an anti-racist and decolonial approach to its work. in addition to the contributions that could be made to the State of the Evidence report, there's also been a really strong effort to localise the JLI's learning hub. So as I mentioned before, we've had these learning hubs. I co-chair the Learning Hub on Anti-Human Trafficking and Modern Slavery, but they very much tended, for logistical reasons, if anything else, to be led by people in the global north, to not always include global south practitioners and scholars, due to language barriers. There were all kinds of logistical reasons why this kind of very broad engagement can sometimes be very difficult. So to address this, the JLI has been very intentionally regionalising or localising the learning hubs through carrying out what it's called listening dialogues, which are meetings that could be half a day, or 2 days long, where local faith actors are invited to attend and to brainstorm on topics that are of interest to them and of relevance to their communities that they might like to then collaborate together and develop a learning hub. So I think this work's really in its infancy, and I very much see that it has a lot of potential in the future.
Yeah. No, and I agree with you. I think that has a lot of potential to further develop and evolve. You mentioned in the discussions that it definitely came also about the topic around localization and decolonization. And I have a question for you about that. Where do you see the debates about localization and decolonization in the religions and development go in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, so just to begin, I think that the concept of decolonization is still something very much of a scholarly term.
Yeah.
Whereas localization is probably the term that's used much more within the practitioner environment. But I think in many ways they overlap. So in terms of both terms, localization and decolonization, I think they're particularly pertinent to the religions and development field, because I think there was a strong feeling, maybe 15 or 20 years ago, that bringing faith into development, that arguing for the relevance of faith to development was a decolonial and a localizing initiative. It was part of decolonization and part of localization, because previously faith actors had been ignored, had been marginalized, been left out of development, perhaps this being part of a kind of colonial Western bias that's still perpetuating sort of enlightenment and scientific and rational values, and pitting them against spirituality and religion. So I think there was that feeling at the time, but I think as time's gone on, we've perhaps begun to realise that there's been a degree of instrumentalisation of faith within the aid sector, and that this probably hasn't been quite as localised and as decolonised as many of us would have liked or would have assumed was going to happen. And I think this is really where this need to re-emphasise or to emphasise the local faith actors has come in, because, in many ways, faith-based organisations have been instrumentalised to suit the needs of the Western aid industry, and the local faith actors have been left out of that. So I think this kind of move towards local faith actors, towards the Fair and Equitable initiative, are very much an attempt to really intentionally localise and decolonise religions and development. Very recently with the JLI, I have begun a study where we have conducted a survey we've had about 105 responses, so a survey of faith actors, both international, local faith actors, to ask them, what are your experiences of these terms? Are these terms, localization and decolonization, terms that are used in your workplace? Are they used in your reporting? Are they something that you discuss in your meetings? So we're trying to get a really broad understanding of how these terms actually play out in practice, or are they just discourses that really don't have much relevance at the local level or the level of practice? So we've just completed that survey, and we're going to be beginning some interviews, and then there will be a report written. So I'm hoping from that we might be able to predict a little bit what localization and decolonization might mean for religions and development going forward in the next 5 to 10 years. And perhaps even our publication, our report might even be able to have some kind of impact on how that discussion develops. But as I said, we're just at the beginning of that study.
And when do you expect that, that paper or publication to be available?
Yeah, probably the second quarter of next year. So 2024, spring 2024, I think, because we're just about to start our interviews now. So I think, early 2024, we should be publishing our report on that research.
Okay, it sounds like an interesting chapter for the state of the evidence report as well. So
it could well be, it could well be.
Nice. Emma, for me, working for the development organization, really the sustainable development goals are really kind of important. It's not perfect, but at least as a world, we identified 17 goals to make this world more sustainable. And my question to you about it is, from my point of view, it seems that the JLI's mission is more crucial than ever in contributing to reaching these goals. And you talked already from the minute we started about the joint learning. What is the power of joint learning within this, and how do you see the potential of collaborative approaches in creating sustainable change?
I mean, it's really interesting when you look at the SDGs, the goals and the targets and the indicators. There's virtually no mention of religion. I think it's mentioned on a couple of occasions. Even when we're talking about things like gender equality or social inequality or even conflict, the areas that many still like to attribute towards religion, and certainly religion can play a role in those areas. Really no mention of religion at all. There could be very good reasons for this, I think. Again, going back to what I was saying earlier about religion being perceived as being something that's divisive, something that is a cause of conflict. And, I think that there is an argument that the Sustainable Development Goals need to be universal. They need to kind of cut across different cultures and different religions. But nonetheless, I think there's still a way of bringing recognition of religion and its importance to people in the global south into a framework like the SDGs without it being problematic. Because on the ground, it's the local faith actors, often in their churches and their mosques, who are running workshops on women's empowerment, who are providing school uniforms so children can afford to go to school, who are raising money for free school meals or to build toilet blocks at school, so girls can go to school when they're menstruating and don't have to stay at home. So it's often these things are really being organised at the very local level, and they could be scaled up, they could be better supported, and they're just not being. So I think there's a lot of work going on at the local level, not just in the global south and the global north as well, that's undervalued, under-recognised, under-resourced, and could be much better supported with the aim of achieving the SDGs. I mean, something else that I think is very interesting at the moment is that, as you say in your question, the Sustainable Development Goals are at their midpoint. So really soon, the discussions are going to be starting about what's the next framework going to look like. We've had the Millennium Development Goals for 2015. Yeah. We've got the Sustainable Development Goals for the next 15 years, 2030. What's the new framework going to look like? And on the experience of the post 2015 discussions, they started 3, 4, 5 years before the goals were actually set. So I think this is a really good time for organisations like the JLI to be talking to faith actors about how they could be involved in the next phase, what they might want that to look like, sharing their experiences of how they have implemented the goals on the ground, and the various successes and challenges that they've had with that. So I think this is a really good time to be bringing faith actors into the emerging discussion about what the 2030 agenda is going to look like.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. You know, in my regular podcast, I often talk about what I came across is that, you know, there is this growing group of people who have been saying that, you know, it's great that we have the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. So, you know, it's calling for process and system changes, but you can't make that work if you don't pay proper attention to the ability, skills, and knowledge that you need as individuals and as communities. So they came up with the inner development goals. You know, 5 goals: being, thinking, relating, collaborating, and acting. And there seems to be, you know, an area where JLI can play an important role, right, in that particular realm and bringing these worlds together. What is your...
I mean, that's the joint learning. That's the bridging the gap, isn't it? That's the bringing together. You know, JLI plays a really important sort of mediating role, I think, because it has strong connections and trust with local faith actors, but also very good connections with the international agencies as well, like the World Bank and the United Nations agencies. So it plays a really important mediating role, you know, in that space between the local and the global.
Yeah, no, exactly. Hey, Emma, these conversations always go fast. I have a number of what I call, you know, lighter questions, but I think they're kind of fun way of addressing, you know, the topic that we are trying to address today as well. Music is very important to me, so I always ask questions about music in my podcast. So if I ask you, Emma, to come up with a song or a piece of music that represents JLI, you know, what type of music or song would you come up with, and why?
So I'm just thinking earlier on when my children came home from school, they always usually blast out some music, and they were playing one of my favourite songs, one of their favourite songs as well. So that's "Don't Stop Me Now" by Queen. I won't attempt to sing it, but I think everyone knows that it's an amazing song. But I also that "Don't Stop Me Now" I think really sort of captures something about the life cycle of very small NGOs like or non-profits like the JLI, where there's a lot of energy and enthusiasm and passion to really push ahead with important work, but at the same time it can be really challenging to keep viable in the face of the ongoing pressure to bring in funding, you know, for the core work of the organisation, and project funding as well. It's a very, very competitive environment out there. So I think I can hear the JLI shouting, "Don't stop me now." You know, it's an organisation that's had a tremendous impact so far, and there's so much more that needs to be done, but it's facing an ever more challenging, you know, economic but also political environment where, you know, often our governments don't want us to have the kind of civil society space that the JLI promotes and really stands for. So I think, you know, this does present a real threat to non-profits like the JLI that are advocating and working towards a more just and fair world.
Great. I like that song. I like the band as well. So
I thought you would.
We have noted that. Your opinion about the focus for the future of JLI?
Yeah, I mean, I really think that the Fair and Equitable Initiative, which is just getting off the ground, is very much in its infancy, but is really something that is unique and could really be a game changer in how we actually really do localization properly. I mean, there's a lot of discourse about localization, about the localization of aid in particular. I'm talking about, and engaging with local actors in defining priorities and so on. But often that's just talk, just you know, just box ticking, or people really have good intentions, but when it comes down to it, it's just much too difficult to do within the existing aid architecture that we have today. But I really think the JLI is doing something quite unique here. It's slow work. It takes time to build trust. It takes time for things to emerge. This work doesn't move at a very fast pace. It's very time consuming. But the JLI is making really great strides, I think, with things like the listening dialogues, very sort of small scale work within local communities in one setting, in one town or village somewhere. This kind of work's really important. And we're learning methodologically as well about how to do this better. It's not just about it being the ethical thing to do, but we also need to learn how to do it.
Yeah.
We need to put ourselves out there and try to do things differently, try to think about how we carry out research differently, how we write publications differently, in ways that are decolonial and localized. And I really think the JLI is at the forefront of that with respect to the religions and development field.
If you have to name one colleague, a partner, or a supporter of JLI who best embodies, according to you, what JLI is about, who will you name and why? And this is also, a kind of a great one for me, who I should approach maybe to be a guest on one of the next episodes.
Well, apart from you, Maurice, can I not
fishing for that, right?
It's a really difficult question. I mean, I've worked with the staff in the past and the current staff. I know them really well, not least because they're just such friendly, open people that have been really easy to get to know and to spend time with. I mean, everyone's amazing, both as people and also as colleagues. But I think going back to what I was saying about the Fair and Equitable Initiative, I think I'd really like to have a shout out to Sadia Kidway, who has been leading that initiative. And I find her to be especially inspirational and really to truly embody the localization focus of the JLI. I mean, Sadia is a very calm, almost understated personality, getting on with this work quietly in the background with great effect and impact. She's been leading on the Fair and Equitable Initiative and on the localization of the learning hubs. And as I said before, this is not fast-moving work. It doesn't fit the timelines of funders and donors. It has to be approached at a really steady pace, so trust is built and so understanding grows. And Sadia has approached this magnificently. I mean, she has the patience and attitude to really make a success of the Fair and Equitable Initiative in a way that I think would really be transformatory for how we engage with local faith actors. So Sadia, shout out to Sadia.
We'll definitely reach out to Sadia to be a future guest on this podcast. Emma, what does it mean to be part of the JLI community? And do you consider yourself to be part of that community? And how do you see yourself within that community? Because it's definitely a very diverse community. So, I'm asking this question because for folks out there, they're getting to know JLI now as a result of what you're explaining. They're checking out the website. They think, oh, this seems to be interesting. But tell us more about the community from your perspective.
Yeah, it's a really good question. So I suppose it's a starting point for me before I knew the personalities. And I mean, I'm on the board now and the leadership council of the JLI, so I actually have quite an investment. I can play a role in sort of shaping what the organisation does. But before I was doing all of that, I think for me the real attraction was this connection with the practitioners, policymakers, and the local faith actors. As a researcher who wants to have an impact and wants to make a difference, the networks that the JLI has opened to me and has introduced me to, and again, it's the networks beyond the JLI that are wonderful as well. As I said, the broader board, the executive board, the leadership council, the individuals involved in those sort of bodies within the JLI are also extremely inspirational and committed. So it's not just the JLI, it's the broader community beyond the JLI as well. So yes, I do feel very much part of the JLI community, and as I say, I've had the benefit of being involved on the kind of organizational level as the years have gone on. But even at the beginning, when I was just starting and getting to know everyone, it's a very friendly initiative. I mean, the other thing worth mentioning about the JLI is that there have been very few men actually involved in the kind of key organizational structure over the years. The two CEOs have both been women, and the majority of the staff had been women as well. So it's a very female-led initiative, which I don't mind initiatives that have men in as well, but it's been particularly nice from a female point of view to be working with so many amazing women.
Yeah, no, and it definitely is. I can, affirm that. It's great to. I've been now a couple of months, closely involved. It's more closely.
They're great, aren't they?
Yeah, it's absolutely wonderful. Yeah. Emma, what do you hope this podcast might do for JLI?
Yeah. So I think, what do I think? I think this probably goes back to my point earlier about dissemination. Is that I think the work of the JLI is really well known actually in the religion and development world. A lot of us use the JLI material in our teaching. So my undergrad and master students who do my religion and global development course all know about the JLI. So I think kind of in that smallish world of religion and development, the JLI is really well known. So, I think that community is going to enjoy hearing these podcasts, but also I hope the podcast will raise the profile of the JLI outside this very narrow religion and development world and bring its important work to the attention of a wider range of practitioners, policymakers, scholars, and faith actors. So I think it's that kind of wide impact. And I think the really good thing as well is that because you're going to be interviewing so many different types of people from different locations, that people listening to the podcast are going to get a really good sense of the sort of diversity of the JLI. That it isn't just another global north network that doesn't engage very well with colleagues in the global south. So yeah, that's what I think.
Okay, let's keep our fingers crossed. Okay, hey, thank you so much for
thank you for asking me. I was really delighted.
And thank you for everything you do. Get some rest. And
pleasure.
Yeah, I will.
All right, bye.
Okay, bye. Bye. As we wrap up today's insightful conversation, I hope it has sparked your curiosity and interest in the vital work of the Joint Learning Initiative on Faith and Local Communities, JLI. If today's episode has resonated with you, whether it's the desire to collaborate, contribute, or even offer financial support to further JLI's impactful mission, we'd love to hear more from you. The JLI's journey is one of collaboration, learning, and making a tangible difference in communities through the unique intersection of faith and development. Your involvement could be a significant part of this transformative process, whether you're looking to offer your expertise, resources, or are seeking to understand more about how you can contribute. Your initiative is invaluable. Please feel free to reach out to us. Send an email to maurice@jliflc.com or contact us through our platform. We welcome your thoughts, questions, and proposals for collaboration. I'll personally ensure that your interest is directed to the right people at JLI, helping you connect with a network of individuals and organizations dedicated to creating a better world through faith-informed development. Thank you for joining us on Walk, Talk, Listen, where each conversation brings us closer to understanding and action. Your engagement doesn't just end with listening, it begins here. Let's continue to be part of this remarkable journey together. Thank you. Thank you for listening to Walk, Talk, Listen. Please check us out on 100mile.org or follow us on Facebook or Instagram.